Welcome to Represent Council meeting, 6/2022, Tuesday, the 24th of May, 5:24, opening the meeting. Logging item 1, moving to item 2, regarding members and deputy members of the council who are unavailable, disqualified, ineligible, resigned, and present. Let's see who is here. We will have Antti Ilmavirta performing the roll call. Please. Yes, let's perform the roll call in the order that has been entered into this Excel spreadsheet. Yes, this started out well. Is there anyone else standing in for Siren? Yes, so absent. Moving on. Is there anyone whose name was mentioned and should have? Yes, it seems that you haven't notified beforehand which of you will be present. So just a moment. So Schisma we have Luukkanen and Sorvali from Schisma. Anyone else? No. You got 34 representatives present. 35. "35 representatives are present. We also grant the right to speak to OPS personnel, interpreters, and staff members. Also have the automatic right to be present to speak to the financial director or financial committee. No members of student union are allowed to be present. So get the right to several other persons until the end of item 8. Also for several people to record the virtual campus tour. Anyone else who need to be granted the right to be present to be present or to speak? Apparently no. So closing item 2, moving to item 3. Recording the lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. According to the regulations, we have quorum if there are at least 25 representatives present and the chairperson or vice chairperson. According to regulations, the meeting invitation to the meeting has to be published on the bulletin board and the website 7 days prior to the meeting. The invitation must be sent via email at least 7 days prior to the meeting, in English, Swedish, and English. We have at least 25 representatives present, the chairperson is also present, and the invitation was sent 7 days prior to the bulletin board, website, and mailing list. So the meeting is lawful and has quorum. Closing item 3, moving to item 4, election of 2 persons approving the minutes and 2 vote counters. So deputies for both. And I propose that as before, the vote counters will act as deputies to the people approving the minutes and vice versa. So we need 4 people. Any suggestions, Fielman? Yes, anyone else? Please speak in a loud voice. State your name clearly. I still can't remember your names by heart. Yes, I have 2 proposals. Are these people available? We need 2 vote counters. Luukkanen, I'm available. And one more. Yes, Adriansen is available as well. Yes, another request for floor. Closing discussion. Fielman and Ailpi are persons approving the minutes, and Luca and Adriansen are vote counters. The agenda has been sent to you. Anything to add? So we can approve the agenda. Moving to item 5.1, closed session. According to section 18 of our student union constitution, every student union member shall have the right to attend representative council meetings. The right to speak and to attend shall be further specified in the rules of procedure of the representative council. However, the representative council shall have the right to decide on an individual case shall be addressed entirely or partly in a closed session. And item 8, sale of divested properties, addresses matters and information, the disclosure of which could put the student union at a disadvantage as a party to the transaction. Such information includes information on properties offered for sale and the bids received. Opening discussion, any comments, Saikko? Yes. Is this confidential only for people who are here or confidential for all representatives? So can people tell their group members about what we discussed if they are representatives and they are not present here? Are all representatives and vice representatives privy to this information? I think it's necessary that our representatives need to receive this information to make their decisions. But this is sensitive information. I agree that these bids and market analysis should be kept confidential. But I think there are some items that can be kind of shared with group members. Any other requests for floor for this item? Apparently no, so we can make the decision. The representing council decided to address item 8 in a closed session. Closing item 5 with item 6, announcements. Opening discussion. First, we have our new executive director, Ilmavirta. Thank you. Dear representatives, as I understand, in the previous meeting you had hoped for some kind of a speech from me. And since it's my task to fulfill all your wishes, you will get a speech, but a very short one. Firstly, thank you for the trust you have invested in me as you elected me the executive director with clear numbers. Feels good to work towards the best student's life in the world. And I've had a very rapid start. Thank you to everyone who welcomed me at the office. And when I started, I was happy to see how well the orientation was prepared, all the timetables, materials. But before all, I'd like to thank Annika and Monika and Otto and everyone else who handled the executive director's tasks here in during this transition period. So let's give a round of applause to them. Yes, I had a very rapid start, very long days, long hours. Just my own fault, because I really wanted to learn everything, take part in all the meetings when starting. And it's been very nice. Asked me for some kind of a policy speech. Only policy is that, well, I've noticed that I've contemplated that what are the things that are the core functions, core tasks of the student union. And the representing council has created good documents related to that, and I have faith that when I have questions, you can tell me what these core tasks are. Otherwise, please be merciful if there are any technical or other hiccups, difficulties. This is my first meeting, but yes, have a good meeting, and chairperson may continue. Thank you. Filman. Thank you. It is also the last time we will have Annika in our meeting, so going to have some kind of a speech from her as well. Well, it's been nice, but it's also nice to take time off. Thank you, and if there are more speeches, we can have them when we have other emerging matters. But any more announcements? Pajukari? I'd like to announce one of AYYE's values, sustainability, has been visible last week in the student union field. For example, last Thursday, student union said that they are entirely plant-based in their food. And next day, SYL also said that they will move by 2030 to serve only plant-based food. Representing council can also start thinking whether we would need to also update our food and meal policies. Yes, thank you. Filman, related to this, I'd announce that we could update these meal policies so that we would have more game on offer. Thank you. Maybe we can continue discussion at the end of the meeting. Any other requests from floor for announcements, or can we move on? Move kind of quiet.
Ja päätetään kohdan 6 käsittelyyn, siirrytään kohtaan 7, toimiston kuulumiset.
Item 7, latest news from the office, Sainio.
Ja otetaan kysymykset sitten esityksen jälkeen.
Do we have any questions after the presentation?
Yritän olla koskematta. Yes. Saadaanko tosiaan Sampo Sainio, hallituksen jäsen?
Yes, I'm Sampo Sainio, member of the board.
Joo, tosiaan Antti on aloittanut.
Yes.
3.5.
Antti Ilmavirta started in his task on the 3rd of May.
Sen lisäksi meillä on tapahtunut muita hallinnollisia muutoksia.
Some other administrative changes. Laura Luoto will now also be responsible for sustainable development. Touko Heikkinen's non-military service period has ended, but Touko will continue in the service team as a summer employee. Mostly about the housing regulations and its update. We also introduced this Jira service management ticket system that IT can use to manage support requests. And the university has also developed an electronic form for the return of study rights and for the return of membership fees. For the community, the tutor training have now concluded. Just thank you for the persons responsible. For association announcements and operating grant applications has also concluded. We also have 4 new associations, actually 5. They also coordinated the tutoring of Ukrainian students. And Smökki. There's a lot of happening there. It has not been registered as a place where we can officially serve alcohol. It can be temporarily be this kind of a space. Then we also ordered new chairs for Smökki. For real estate, selling our real estate is moving according to plan. We will get back to it later in this meeting. And at Otakar 18, the facelift project, we are working on that, on the model apartment. We're just waiting for some cupboard doors. They also have this roadmap towards carbon neutrality that we have worked on. It has progressed well. It also affects our technical design guidelines. So the miesten tie, for the new building there, the permission to construct, it's now being processed, the application. They're also building a new real estate data system. And for services, for the facility reservation, this period has now concluded, or the event was on the 10th of May, and the first application round is now open. They also went through the results in the tenant feedback survey, received mainly positive comments. We also started the reform of our housing regulations, because there are some entries that contradict each other. Then for advocacy, Well, we did advocacy work on the Syrilla's General Assembly material. Then we made a statement about this new non-free pathway to studies together with the Tampere University Student Union.
Kansainvälisyyden asiantuntija, mä en tiedä mikä Fonin virallinen titteli on, mutta Fon meidän toimistolta on mukana tässä järjestössä.
Then I met with Henrik Vuorens and Nasima Razmyar.
Henrik Vuornosta ja Nasima Razmyaria, eli Espoon kaupunginhallituksen puheenjohtajaa ja
The chair of Espoo Municipal Council.
Aallon strategia on kommentoitu.
Commented on the Aalto's strategy. There's an advocacy victory. So international students now get a residence permit for the entire duration of their studies. And it's also easier to apply for a job after graduation for them. Then we also had the Sustainable Development May for our communication side. So with the Radio Diodi, had a question hour there for a lot of feedback. We also have launched 2 new Telegram channels. We also have a dedicated equality page on our website now. And for the board, yes, met with politicians, approved several associations into the association register for an anniversary party and also celebrated Vappu. These are the things that we have handled with the board. So this citizens initiative for student care for everyone decided to communicate that, about that. Decided on the right to book facilities for orchestras, made agreement with the orchestras that is. Further did the language policy, etc. Thank you. Any questions? Opening discussion. Any questions or comments? Filman Adriansen. Thank you. Which do we pay for the integrated unit? Get for what? The license fee is 500 euros, the same price as universities get it. Could you rather have a stream on YouTube and Telegram instead of Instagram, so it would reach out a larger number of people? Yes, we can do that. And Rebecca. Yes, Laura Luoto is our Chief of Advocacy Communications. Did we deprioritize something from her workload if she's now also responsible for sustainable development? Yes, can someone answer this better than me? I have discussed with Laura. I'm not quite certain what we deprioritized, but when we discussed it, we were of the mind that this doesn't put at risk of the other things she does. I think at least some projects have been completed, so there's more time. Laura was happy with this new responsibility and has already worked for these sustainability issues. So she's the right person for the job and has the resources for it. So there's quite large carbon neutrality roadmap is more handled by the real estate sector. So as an example. That there's been a lot of discussion with Haas on a certain topic. Is there anything that you want to share with the representing council?
No, varmasti riippuu edustajisten jäsenten kiinnostuksen kohteesta.
Well, it depends on what the representative's interests are.
Jos haluatte puhua low carbon rakennustuotteista, niin
If you want to talk about low carbon building products, I can tell you about them.
jos on jotain tarkempia kysymyksiä, niin
Or if you have any more kind of specific questions,
mielelläni vastaan.
I'm happy to answer. Very kind of broad this question.
Yes, onko muita puheenvuoropyyntöjä?
Thank you. Any other requests for floor? Until from Kem. Mention the new chairs at Smökki.
Oman ymmärryksen mukaan
And the interpreter didn't hear the rest of the question, but the answer is that we ordered 200 chairs.
mulle sanottiin, että mahdollista jopa saada kesäksi, mutta nyt tällä hetkellä
And I was told that it may be possible that we will get them by the summer, but we're not quite sure about it yet. We should get them in the summer.
How is it possible that we order them after we have been told the last time we discussed about this that there's no money for the chairs?
tähän hankintaan käytettiin Tekin 2019
Used the
tekemään lahjoitussummaa.
donation made by Tech in 2019. That's where we got the money.
Yes, tuleeko muita puheenvuoropyyntöjä?
Thank you. Any other requests for floor?
Tulevan, joten
Apparently no.
sillä lailla, että suljen aiheesta keskustelua.
We got close discussion. Make the decision. The council decided to record the latest news from the office. It's been decided. Closing item 7. And now, before moving on, we will have item 8, sale of divested properties. So now we will close the stream. And also say that the interpreters will stay online to provide interpretation.
esityslistallakin lukee. Eli näin. Ja striimi toimii, toivon, myös tulkkaus.
Stream is active again and somebody is rustling something next to the microphone, so all I can hear is the rustling. There we go. Moving on to item 9, preliminary debate on the use of funds received from the sale of divested properties. So Kureniemi presenting.
Kohta 9. Lähetekeskustelu luovuttavien kiinteistöjen
Item
myynnissä
9.
saatujen rahojen käytöstä. AY:n kiinteistöpolitiikan mukaisesti asuntokohteiden myynnissä saatava tuotto käytetään AY:n asuntotoimintaan.
In accordance with AYY's property policy, the revenue from the sale of residential properties will be used for AYY's housing operations, unless the representative council decides otherwise on a case-by-case basis. Housing operations do not have an acute need for revenue from the entire transaction, and therefore funds can be earmarked for other operations. So now we can imagine we have a lot of money and we have something to use it for. So I tried to beat the agenda very concisely on talking about why and how can we affect the allocation of the funds, what things are possible, what can be affected. We also have the real estate policy there. So same line is that the revenue from the sale of residential properties will be used for housing unless the council decides otherwise on a case-by-case basis. And when we have the money, we will invest them through our shareholders or portfolio holders. So all in all, we mainly use the money which we gain from our investments, not sales profits or stuff like that. Here kind of a raw breakdown of the funds. We have housing activities with our student housing, organizational activities, events, OPKE, community, etc. So housing, mainly affordable student living, is number one. And if we use money here, we will maybe, for example, we could buy plots, fund the equity share of our own parts of our investments in real estate, or implementation of zoning requirements, for example, business parts or commercial parts of buildings. Sometimes we have to do some of these in any case, but this is something we can do. In zoning, for example, some zoning requires that the buildings need to have commercial spaces in the buildings. And of course, you can't build that with ARA funding. So, organizational activities. On the background, we have the student center investment, which is kind of taking away from our existing system, so the upcoming profits will be smaller. Another point is that the rental facilities investments on maintenance cannot be made with ARA money either. So we can't use the tenants' money to pay for renovations. Some kind of question marks. It's possible that we run out of automated membership and membership fees at sometimes. It means that we don't receive membership fees as much or at all. It kind of creates a bit of a pressure there. then single rental and other community spaces, increasing them and renovating our facilities is something that's done here. Quite short and to the point. Whoa, skipped something there. Whoops. We had a magical transference to the other slide deck. An excerpt from the Takiva comments. They decided to recommend the grounds for the discussion that half of the money will be used to fund housing and half to fund organizational activities, regardless of whether or not some of the money will be taken for organizational activities or not. The Takiva will recommend that the sales funds will be invested according to our investment policy. TLDR, we see that the organizational activities, we need more funding there, and there's no less requirement for funding in the housing side. Next up, some timetable comments by the 10th of June. Asking some comments that can be sent to me at thomas.kuraniemi@AYYE, either from groups or individuals. Based on this, the board will work a template and also use the Takiva and your comments. And a decision will be made in the fall. Quite short and to the point in terms of slides. To the PowerPoint. So thank you. Opening discussions. Let's take questions to start with. We have lots of questions. First Fielman. Then Värisalmi and Poikanen. Is it not so that in this decade we would have more plot purchases? And is it so that the 10 million plus something will be used for something that the interpreter did not hear? So in practice, real estate side has use for this money. Trying to find the question here. We have several plot purchases up and coming. We'll have more on that later, but and Monica is answering, but the interpreter will have no chance of trying to make heads or tails of the answer because it comes through a double microphone. So we hope that we would have the opportunity to buy plots in the next up and coming 10 years. And that it's one road towards that we have affordable living ensured continuously. We aim to buy plots for new construction. It's not always possible. The opportunity might not always be there. I want to reiterate that when we talk about the student center systems, like Thomas said, it is investments on the not the housing side of things. So it's not student housing related. Did I answer the question? So we will have plot purchases. Yes, hopefully. So we have another part for that part. Sorry, I have to ask about these money issues. Yes, these are big sums. I generally don't use millions. How does this go when we are talking about, for example, allocating the money, investing the money, and the purchase profits or investment profits? So would it be so that the money we gain from the sale will be placed in investments, which means we can take more money yearly out of investments?
Joo, juurikin näin.
Exactly.
Olet fiksu tyyppi.
You are very smart. Yes, so we don't have a kind of a 30 million then we can just bake into making Smökki better or something like that. Kind of a annual increase in our pocket money. So.
Joo, muistan, että puhutaan nyt osuuksista eikä...
Remember, we're talking about shares, not sums in this discussion.
Mut hyvä kysymys oli...
Good question. It's important that you actually want to ask things if you're unclear on things. Questions can be made. Do you have any more questions, or shall we go directly to discussion? You can ask if you get something that you want to ask. So greener Aalto. Okay, and this is very fast and straight from the paper, but they are proposing using the money to renovate our party facilities. It's very hard to get Smökki to your use. Last year we saw that KY and KY's organizations are interested in Smökki. And we don't have many large spaces. So freshman parties and other traditions can't be organized in smaller spaces. So the problem is that we only have OK 20 upstairs for 80 people in addition to Smökki. Construction a new facility might be optimistic because it's a plot and zoning issue, but we would want that we would look into the possibilities of building a new facility for parties. Also could solve some of the noise issues. Also, OK 20 upstairs would be good to renovate. We'd use a kitchen and toilet makeover. And it will be high time to get a modern rental system, online rental system. So the people at the central office could use their work time to the proper things. Because that we request that. Because, yes, exactly, us interpreters cannot try and comprehend that kind of speed. Thank you for the floor, Emily, followed by... This is a large sum of money, and we need to look quite far into the future. First off, I want to say that we use a lot of this money for plot purchases. Then we have some money for investments so that it grows. So we should continuously grow our investments to ensure our activities in the future. By placing this money in investments, we should put a roof on how much money we can take out of investments.
Opiskelijakeskuksen osalta haluan huomioida sen, että mielestäni niin kuin AY:n tavoitteet on aika kriittisessä tilanteessa siinä,
AYYE's goals are kind of critical stage. That's what we have decided or what we want from the student center. Of course, we would have an option that we could get the sensible party facility in the student center and more facilities for AYY's purposes as well. We could put money there, but this requires us to open the funding discussion on student center. So we need to use this money for the future, not so that we don't start to spend this immediately, but it's these are also investments for the future. Holmström followed by Kainalainen. Sounds good. We'll use this for organizational activities. And now all the interpreter here here's this gobbledygook. Affects the budget and the activities.
Sun ääni ei kuulu ilmeisesti tulkeille, eli saatko puhuttua vähän kovempaa. Tai jos vaikka voit ottaa ne eteen puhumaan myös.
Let's try and speaking a bit louder. Yes. We would like to see in decision making what is the request of resources on and the interpreter didn't get the last of it. Thank you. I'd just like to state at this stage that especially if you have these kind of prepared longer speeches, please send them to the email list after the meeting. If somebody misses them here, you may read them afterwards from that. Maybe kind of a many years Rengas has talked about community budgeting, had discussions that yes, the interpreter cannot hear that one either. The speaking louder thing never works because they never do. Do you have the hand mic? No. Do our hand mics work? They might speak louder for the first sentence, but not afterwards. Please come up front to the microphones to speak. Thank you. Okay. Kyltäringas has many years talked about increase our budget. It has been very deficitous, which has been not fun. So we saw that this would be kind of a good way to get more money into our community budget and to increase the amount of money for community activities. So the money from our sales profits, maybe we could, when we maybe use automation membership, or we could cut the membership fee, for example, in the future. So Saikku from Luova. We discussed this with our group, and I see big potential in how this money could be used in our general activities, but we saw that the biggest potential could be reached in the real estate world. Excellent point about technical rental spaces, and if one of you had tried to get one of the bigger facilities for the rest of the year. It's kind of almost impossible. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the best days to party, it seems. Student union, we also have a very broad, large community needs. For example, last year we noticed that for the first time in 4 years, we had 3 club rooms, and we got the applications in large droves. And you can imagine when you look at the boards, tables, it means that we usually have a new club coming in every other week. It means that it'll only increase. And looking at our housing, it has been kind of possible in Otaniemi to do this community living. Campus is not just the school and your studio. So it's a third student sector where people can do the community in a way that they want. I would like to remind you or reiterate that how, for example, the new Otakari inner buildings, is it possible to maybe use this money to create more community living in these areas? Or is it possible to just, for projects past that, maybe allocate the funds? Thank you. Does Monika have anything? So, Otakari we have planned for a long time. In the cellar facility, these communal facilities, but what kind of usage will they have? What kind of money? What money will be using? Or will this be for students or for all members? We have plans more than earlier even, but thank you. Then thinking about maybe try to get this more clarified that for other parties, Monika, please correct me if I say something wrong, but if we decide to allocate part of this for organizations, then it would mean that when student center money will be removed from the pot that is currently as investment program. If we may place more money to that, the portion that we could take out to the community side would not get smaller, and the more we put in, we can maybe increase the portion of that we can actually take away from the profits. For example, to the organizational side of things, to things like non-housing pertaining items. Based on this, I think this is what the Takima said, that we wouldn't place all of it just for housing. Thank you.
So I think now is probably the right moment in the meeting to say what I wanted to say earlier. Yes. So I'm just thinking that, like, I have myself lived half a year in a hostel because I couldn't get a house from AYYE or HOAS, and I know many other students who have been in the same situation. And what does it help a student like this if we have more parties and more facilities for more parties if they can't even live in a proper place? And that's why I think it would be, like, as a representative, I would have a hard time to explain to a student that we sold properties for living if we don't reinvest the money that we get from that in new opportunities for them to live somewhere. I would have a very bad feeling about this. That's why I think most of the money should be invested in student housing, and well, we could invest a smaller amount also probably in a project that is like a bigger facility that everyone really can use if we have such a high request for this. But I think the largest part of it should go into building more student housing.
Thank you. Antti, haluan kommentoida.
Any comments?
Korjatkaa taas erityisesti sieltä sektorista, jos
Correct me if I'm wrong.
mutta tähän
Of course, please. But as a comment to this,
uusia opiskelija-asuntoja
new student housing is something that's being built with ARA funding and with loan funding, not our equity. So placing money to housing does not mean that we can do more houses, kind of a simplified manner. But let's say that we won't do less housing with some money placed to the community side of things. It won't mean that there's less housing being built. So quick AYYE, when we build, we use ARA and bank loans. We don't have our own equity tied up in these projects. Thank you for your good comments. Do you have any other requests for the floor for this item? It might be that might be a bit early, but have you discussed with the board that how will this money affect the decision on the student center? Is it kind of directly plus minus zero, or when we do this decision together? Have you discussed this as a board, and how do you feel that how will this affect? I may answer this. The board has not yet discussed. From last year, in the student center decision, we also decided that how it will be funded. Primarily, we talked about from our investment portfolio and scale our activities. This is just a new opportunity. What the representative council wants to do, it can do. So you have the power of decision here. A reminder, when you do group chairs, remember that you need to look into the future, and we need to increase the level of our investments. And if we lose our yearly membership fees, that would be a large deficit in our budget. So this is a realistic risk in the future. That's something that we need to kind of get into level with Helsinki University, where they are able to stand alone without membership fees. Thank you. And remember, Luukkanen schisma. I think that we had two levels that we need to think about. Feels on some other parts, like you said, because building new buildings is with ARA funding, it's very hard to get kind of a picture of where do the money that we're putting on housing, what's it go, where's it going, and what is it being used for? So what would be the minimum sum? What should we place? What does it enable? And then when the minimum or a bit over the minimum, whatever, that we have put there so that we can enable our activities on this level, then maybe we can think about the surplus. My personal point of view would be that then we take the student center pot. And if after that we still have money, then we can do fun stuff. These are kind of questions that I think you should ponder before a decision. Now we're not deciding on what we are using the money or how we are allocating it. We are doing it in the fall with the real estate sale.
Että sillä on jotain fiksua sanottavaa asiaa, niin kutsun sut tänne.
Eli Suomen talousjohtokunnan puheenjohtaja. Tämähän on periaatteessa ihan oikeassa tässä kysymyksessä.
Basically, you are correct in the question that the challenge is that we haven't earmarked the money for one thing. We just have the money that we have and we do all the activities. And very quick speaker there. We might need money for. I think essential here. I will speak slower now. So we ensure our finances, all housing that is being planned can be taken to fruition without this. This opens up new buffers that we can set in place. If we put half of the money spirituality to housing, nothing currently is actually tying it to housing. And we can use it there, but we don't actually have a current direct need what we would need to use it. So all in all, we get the money, and I think the decision that we do not placing it so that you must use it for housing, but you have good ideas from many parts. For example, when building houses, maybe building new facilities with student unions money, so the freer hands you will leave for the future. It's very clear that we need to build houses. We are building houses regardless. We have the funding, we have secured it. Because we are looking at the opportunities of building new housing, and this enables everything that might come up. And one comment on increasing our holdings. We don't want to maybe go to a completely free future. You need to use the money, and it's not sensible to just save the money for the future generations 100%. I hope that it will be sensibly used as well in these targets, but you can't use more each year than you have in your investments. But you can continuously use a lot of the money we gain from investments. That's perfectly okay. Thank you. Sampo, maybe. Yes. I'll come up front. Historically, we have kind of do this division between housing and other activities. I would say that the members of AYYE are in the best possible position for students. We are the only student union that has houses. I think that's pretty valuable. And for the future, we might not have direct targets, but we can discuss that in the upcoming years if we want to buy plots. The history is that we have houses. City is an organization that if they decide that they won't have student housing in certain areas, it might not be realistic in 10 years, but it's a possibility. Thank you. At this stage, I wanted to defend putting money for organizational activities for the future, because I see it as an investment to the future, that we make decisions based on politics. we are kind of in a good situation here, and that's a result of the fact that the decision makers are alumni who feel strongly for this community. It was a very painful decision to do, that OPKE will take some of the investment funds, means that we have less money in the upcoming years to use for organizational activities. These activities are very important for our community, but it's also an active sales pitch point if we remove automation membership. Like, we have an active package, active community, active events and housing. You want to be a member. Take care of the diversity, and kind of the experiences that student culture can create, because these have been for many people as valuable as the degree that they receive, maybe to some even more so. I wanted to also focus that investing into organizational activities is an investment for the future. Thank you, Luukkanen and Filman.
Luukkanen, Skisma. Kiitos tarkennuspuheenvuorosta tähän liittyen.
Thank you for this clarifying speech.
Musta on tuntunut, en tiedä onko sitä
I think that, I don't know if it has been said out loud,
rakennuspolitiikka on ollut aika lailla se, että kaikki mitä voidaan tehdä.
but it's good that our building policy has been that everything that we can do, we will do.
Pysymään siinä, että kaikki mitä saadaan tehdä, voidaan tehdä.
It's important we try to stick to this, to think about how we can do it, especially on the housing side. I think we should use as much money as we need on the housing side and the rest on the ideological side. It popped into mind this comparison, where I don't want us to end up in, that the older generations build kind of a good society and the next generation just burns all the money away. So that, and to make sure that we don't just use all the money on something fun.
Sorry, I'm still listening to the end before I say myself. So just one more comment. I think generally in investing in property, all kinds of property, in this case not probably only housing, is more sustainable. So just a simple example, if we would, for example, get proper plates for smokey, then we wouldn't need as much money for the organization anymore, because if AYYE organizations make a party in Smokey, then they can use those plates there and they don't have to buy one-time use plates every time. Like, I think in that sense, investing in property can be better decision in the long run for the whole community than investing in one-time events. Thank you.
Kiitos.
Thank you.
Onko meillä vielä muita puheenvuoropyyntöjä?
Anyone else?
Ilmenä ja vihreämpi Aalto, haluaisin viitata tuohon edustaja Filmanin kommenttiin.
To comment to what Filman said, that what I've heard from the older generations is that they did use all the money on something fun and it was worth it. So
Kiitos näistä sanoista.
Ellei muuta, niin näiden pohjalta hyvä lähteä rakentamaan.
yes, based on this, it's good to move on. The proposal draft based on this discussion. Thank you for the presentation and discussion. Closing discussion. Let's make the decision. And I'd like to remind you that especially if you have already written out speeches, please email them and send them to our mailing list. Yes, the Representative Council decided to record the preliminary debate. Closing item 10, closing item 9, moving to item 10. Preliminary debate on the updating of the student union's investment policy. Yes. Kuranemi will continue. Yes, just a reminder that the Finnish ice hockey game starts at 20 past 8. But yes, let's talk about our investment policy. So, first let's go through the proposed changes to the investment policy. And then we'll have some comments, speeches, if you have them. This isn't created by me because there are so many colors, but yes. Our current investment policy is from 2017. And the document is part of our property and asset management package. So for the investment section of the Financial Committee, they saw that there's a need to update it, including changing the allocation of investments and possibly mention of new investment targets. And then updated kind of textually a lot. To have it more of a policy paper that doesn't need to be updated regularly. So first, yes, the major changes. The allocations we have focus more on stocks, increase their focus. Then we have a new investment target, alternative investments, which means these diverse targets that are outside of the stock exchange. This may be investments in companies that are not listed in the stock exchange, or investments in infrastructure, forest, real estate, excluding housing real estate. So no investment in that, because we have a lot of our own property, a lot of housing buildings. And the schedule, the plan is to start this autumn, this allocation to these alternative investment targets. And please note that our current investment policy enables this in theory, but we just want to make it clearer. Then we added an entry about responsibility and sustainability. Talk about that already through our asset managers as one of the criteria when searching for a new asset manager. So this is the new allocation here. So it's divided into kind of two areas. Publicly listed solvent targets, 80%, and alternative investment targets, 20%. And IG here means investment grade, and HY means high yield, so a bit more higher risk investment. Previously there's been 50-50 allocation, but the Financial Committee sees that we should increase stocks to
julkisista sijoituksista.
and decrease debt investments to 40.
Ja uutena on nostettu nämä vaihtoehtoiset sijoitukset, joiden ehdotetaan olevan toi 20% kaikista sijoitusvaroista.
And then we propose this alternative investment targets to be
Sama asia erilaisissa.
about 20%.
Tää on
And this is the same as before, but in a table.
luonnoksessa, joka teille on.
We also found in the actual document.
Siellä on myös tarkemmin esitetty nämä erilaiset alalajit ja niiden tavoiteallokaatiot.
It also has more details on these different subcategories.
Rajattu erilaisten alalajien painot maks 60%.
And then the maximum focus of a certain sector is 60%,
Kaikki vaihtoehtoiset sijoitukset yhdessä.
which means that not all of our alternative investments would be in just one basket, so to speak.
Sitten muita muutoksia.
Other changes,
Siellä on kirkastettu ajatusta siitä, että sijoitetaan
I clarified the idea that we will invest mainly through funds,
osakkeisiin tai
not into individual stocks or shares.
sitten on rajattu riskiä
Then we also limited the risk,
tai rajattu noita painoja, että kuinka paljon meillä voi olla rahoja kiinni yhdessä
that
sijoituskohteessa.
how much we can invest in a single target.
Vaihtoehtoinen sijoituskohde. Ja selkeytetty myös
Then we also clarified the fact
prosessia.
or the decision-making process when it comes to investments.
Sitten vielä tarkemmin tästä. Siellä joku fiksu ohjelma on huomannut
This is this
3 muutosta.
software has
Painettiin vain pari.
noticed that there's 143 total changes, but yes, we have made
Rakenteisiin ja erilaisiin
changes to the actual phrasing, structure, etc. Because we have wanted to change the nature of this document so that it would make it easier for the asset managers to do asset management that is in line with our policies.
Mitä mennä lähemmäs sitten lukee. Sitten vähän taustoja.
And there's a bit of background that why have we proposed these changes? Well, Student Union is a unique beast. There's an extraordinary investment horizon. We don't have an expiration date that we don't need to withdraw all our investments by a certain date. And we don't need to liquidify our property. About the alternative investment targets, outside target changes, there are alternative investment targets that could bring us good profits.
On saatu yli 10% vuosittaisia tuottoja.
Have been over 10% profit in these kind of targets over the last years. Can you see the text? It's very small, but yes. And Aalto University has set an example because they have a very innovative, theoretically sound, growth-oriented long-term investment policy. So, as a summary, and yes, this slide is by the chair of the financial committee, not by me. I think this illustrates the investment section very well. So, alternative investment targets and entering these sustainability and responsibility issues in more detail. So when you open the discussion, you will feel free to ask questions or
kommentteja,
comment
mutta
on this.
toivon, että jos on jotain pidempiä
If you have
ajatuksia, niin laittaa Edarin listalle esimerkiksi.
lengthy discussions or questions, please send them to the mailing list.
Ja tässäkin sama asia kuin edellisessä kohdassa, niin
Terms for
päätös tästä sijoituspolitiikan
the actual decision
ensi syksynä.
will be made next autumn, this year's autumn that is.
Kiitos paljon.
Yes, thank you.
Joo, avaan näistä keskustelun.
Opening discussion.
Tuolla sapluunalla, eli otetaan ensin, jos teillä on kysymyksiä,
So,
siirrytään laajempaan keskusteluun.
as before, first any questions, then we will have comments, etc. Vilman? If I remember correctly, we only have one asset manager.
Vastata tähän jotain, mutta jos Monika tai Lippo haluaa vastata,
Monika or Mikko, would you like to answer this
aika paljon uskottavaa.
more credible than me?
Yes, eli todella meidän talousjohtokunta ja sijoitusjaosto ja talousjohtokunnan puheenjohtaja. Sanotaan näin, että miksi olisi vain yksi?
Why should we have only one asset manager? We have 44 million of our investment stock, investment portfolio, and it's a significant sum. And if someone does something stupid, then there's more kind of a division of responsibility. We want to be cost efficient, but also have more kind of an allocation. The differences have been quite big between our different asset managers. Yes, we have more than one. It was in the news, a piece that active asset managers have become more passive. What does this mean in practice? Yes, I think I can continue. So the major thing, a major impediment for us are the expenses. So active asset managers have the same fee as passive ones. We get a very competitive price to receive these services. So if you just would purchase these services directly from the bank, it would cost 6 to 10 times more than it does now. And the stock side is mainly on passive investments, and it works fine, but no significant differences. And then when they're active, we get a very competitive price for the service. Last year we had a tendering. We had a good asset manager before, but we still changed it. We have 3 now. We also have more assets. And this is something, if we see that some of the asset managers aren't good, we can change them. There's only 5 days notice. So let's give them the chance. And at least for now, they have done their work well. Thank you. Any other questions? Apparently no. Of course, you can always ask them later, but yes. Now, if you have any other comments besides questions. Yes, I think there's been discussion already in the financial committee, but on page 6 it says that AYYE favors influential investments. This is maybe something that doesn't, because there's always the chance to do this. It says AYYE favors impact investing if such investment objects are available. Maybe if you can have more specific word form here. because people may interpret this differently, because now it just says AYYE favors impact investing. So maybe a more detailed entry. Yes, and Filman. The financial committee talk that this impact can be interpreted in many ways. I think we need to, of course, seek profits, but also be as risk-free as possible. And this is the direction we should take with our investment portfolio. Thank you. Any other requests for floor? Apparently no. So, closing discussion. We can move on to the decision. The Representative Council decided to record the preliminary debate. Closing item 10, moving to item 11. Any other business? Closing discussion, opening discussion, that is. I'll have the first say about upcoming meetings. Because we will now have a summer holiday, summer break. We will continue in September. I hope that we can send you the dates next week, by the latest. Yes, that was it. Quick request. Apologies, the interpreter could not hear this. Something about thanking Annika. And yes, we have some refreshments available. We can move on to the terrace. We have some beverages and some strawberries as well. Anything else?
Thanks that the translation worked out so well today.
I'm glad to hear.
About Annika, that speech. Seems awfully quiet. We're craving for the strawberries, so we can close the discussion. Also close item 11 with item 12, closing of the meeting. It's 8:13. So yes, closing meeting.